Clemson basketball's run is sadly over. It was a lot of fun, but now with that in the rear view, it's time to start looking ahead to college football. And with that, this weekend we have Clemson spring game, the orange and white scrimmage, and so I'm going to dive into that. And what I think is perhaps interesting is that we always hear, don't take too much from the spring game. We're not going to learn much from the spring game. I don't know. Last year, I think we learned quite a bit. And here's a couple examples. We saw TJ Parker, Peter Woods, and Khalil Barnes, all freshmen. I think we were pretty confident Peter Woods was going to be a star, but we didn't know that about TJ Parker and Khalil Barnes. We saw them really flash and play great. Parker had a sack, Khalil Barnes had a pick. We saw them look awesome in that spring game, and we figured, wow, these guys could play a role right away. And of course they did, right? So that was something we didn't know before the spring game. Perhaps if you watched every single practice, you might have known, but for a lot of us, we didn't know that, and we saw it in the spring game, and that gave us a clue. We also, on the flip side, saw the passing game struggle. The offensive line struggled, give up a lot of sacks. We saw Klubnik went just 18 for 33, which is a 55% completion percentage, while Chris Vizina was just 3 for 9, small sample size, but he struggled. They both threw 2 picks, and everyone kind of said, well, the receivers weren't healthy. The offensive line was split. You can't put anything on that. But it kind of proved a little bit true as the passing game ended up being fairly unreliable for large swaths of the season. So I think you got to be careful not to bank everything on it. I mean, last year Banks Pope was really the star of the spring game. He's a walk-on, and he didn't really play hardly once the year started. But I do think there's a lot to learn. So let's talk about that. Before I dive into that, I do want to highlight our sponsor and a contest that they're allowing us to do. So this is our sponsor. It's Respian Man. This is the first book of the Kingdom of the Infinity Realm series. It's an adventure book that follows a young man with MS as he stumbles into a strange new world where he is mistaken for a military officer and must play the part to survive. I thought it was really well done and fast-paced. I helped edit it. I'll put the link to their website and the link to the Amazon page in the description of this video. So be sure to check that out and support some local authors originally from South Carolina. Also, we're going to have a contest related to that. If you will subscribe to this channel, if you've already subscribed, that's fine. You can still play or you can still participate. Subscribe to this YouTube channel and then just leave a comment that just says subscribed. That's all you have to do. And I will go through once we have 100 people who've subscribed. Then I will go through and I will pick one as randomly as I can, and I will mail this book here to you, completely free of charge. So I'll reach out in the comments once we hit that number. I'll pick somebody. I'll reach out in the comments. So look for replies to your comment or a reply to your comment if you're the winner, and I'll ask for your address and ship it to you. So be on the lookout for that. Again, please subscribe to this channel. I appreciate it. And if you leave a comment after you do so, or if you're already subscribed and you leave a comment, you'll be entered to win the book. Also, don't forget to like this channel. All right, now let's start talking about a couple things from the spring game. So there's a couple players I'm going to really have an eye on. I think I'll start with the most obvious, and that's quarterback Cade Klubnik. He had a pretty up and down year. I wouldn't say a bad year, but fell short of at least my maybe lofty expectations for him. But I still believe in him, and I think that last drive of the Gator Bowl against Kentucky should give a lot of people belief. And offensive coordinator Garrett Riley called that drive a huge confidence booster. So now can he build on that? Can this offense, and particularly the passing game, build on that? Last year, Klubnik, sometimes I thought he was accurate, at least compared to what I was used to with DJ Uiagalelei. So I didn't think accuracy was a problem per se, but he was sometimes slow to make decisions. And he was also prone to what I've been calling hero ball, where he either runs it himself when he was supposed to hand off, or just takes excessive risks, like when against North Carolina right before halftime, he decided to run for the touchdown when he needed to throw it away. That one worked out. But is that kind of hero ball, excessive risks? Right now the question is, can he learn from that experience last year? He was humble and kind of admitted his mistakes. He wasn't saying like, well, it worked out, so it's fine. He knew what he did wrong. The coaching staff coached him hard on it, as they should. So now can he, in an actual game, apply those learnings and make quicker decisions, decisive throws, and smart decisions? So obviously the spring game is not going to tell you for sure if he's going to do that through the season, but I think it's a big clue. At least it was last year. So that's one thing I'm looking to see. Last year, the other quarterback, the second string quarterback, was Hunter Helms. And that was in part because, as we saw in the spring game, Vizina wasn't ready. Well, now Hunter Helms is gone and Vizina's the second string. So if Klubnik goes down, we're going to need Vizina. And you'd also like to just get him experience, in a couple different spots, maybe a blowout, things like that. And we've heard that Vizina is, quote, pushing Klubnik, and they say it in a positive way because Vizina's made such quick progress from where he was a year ago. So I don't doubt that, but I always sort of have, a let's see it before we believe it kind of mentality with these sorts of things in coach speak. So it would be really great to see it in the spring game. So watching both of those, the top two quarterbacks, I think that's a given, but I think they actually have a little bit more to prove than, your typical Clemson quarterback in the spring game. So I'll be watching them. Now, I'm going to go from the most obvious to one that's a little bit more under the radar, and that's Ryan Linthicum. So last year, Clemson returned 4 out of 5 starters on the offensive line. Jordan McFadden was the one who left. So you think the offensive line could have taken a big step forward, but they really didn't. I don't want to say they got worse, but they weren't any better despite returning all that experience. And that resulted in a change to the offensive line coach position with Matt Luke coming in. So Matt Luke, I think, is a really elite offensive line coach. He was a head coach and offensive line coach at different times at Ole Miss. He came over to Georgia, where he was an offensive line coach for their elite offensive line that won their first national championship since 1980. So I think it's a tremendous hire. Now, how quickly can he mold this group of offensive linemen? That's what we don't know. And I think a big key in this offensive line taking a big step, because they're going to return 4 out of 5 again, but this time the guy they lose is Will Putnam. Now, Will Putnam's not Jordan McFadden. He's not a star in that regard. He's not rated as highly in PFF or anything like that. And he'll probably be a very late draft pick, whereas Putnam was much earlier. But Putnam did start 49 games at Clemson. He was the starting center the last 2 years. And while he wasn't a superstar, he was a reliable veteran. He played 3,564 snaps from scrimmage, which is the second most in school history. Of course, COVID year helps that, but he was a big part of this offense the last couple of years. So now they're looking at most likely, I mean, it's far from a given, but most likely Ryan Linthicum, the 4-star from Maryland, replacing him as the starter. He's got to earn it, but seeing that in the spring game will go a big way into understanding just, how far along he is. Is there going to be a drop off at center? He's a redshirt junior, but he only played 59 offensive snaps last year. So really wasn't trusted to be a major part of the rotation last year. Need him to take a big step. If not, is the entire offensive line going to have to shuffle around? And so those are some of the questions you still have on the O-line. And I think a lot of it centers specifically on Ryan Linthicum. So the other thing about that, Clemson's been very slow to use the portal, have not landed a impact guy. So 2 points on that are, I'm not going to rehash whether they should or not right now in this video, but we do know that they looked for an offensive lineman in the portal, particularly an interior offensive lineman. Does that indicate at all that they were going to try to get one and start him at center rather than Linthicum? Linthicum stays. He benefits from them not grabbing an impact player from the portal. Can he look good and solidify that spot while he has a chance? If he struggles, does that mean they have to look in the spring portal window and try to grab someone? So I think there's a lot to see there at center with Ryan Linthicum. And then I started this by talking about freshmen, 3 freshmen who made a good impression in the spring game, and it proved out to be real as they were very impactful as true freshmen last season. So now I think there's another 3 freshmen I want to look at and see if they could pop off in this spring game. Maybe that's a clue, just like it was last year, that there's going to be a couple freshmen to make a big impact. The first and maybe most important of those is Bryant Wesco. So Clemson brought in 2 really elite wide receiver prospects that I think everyone is and should be excited about. One is Bryant Wesco, and the other is TJ Moore. TJ Moore is not an early enrollee, though, so he's not playing in the spring game. Bryant Wesco is. So that's the one to watch, at least in this game. Now, Clemson has Tyler Brown, who was a true freshman last year, who led the team in receiving yards. And they get this Tyler Brown, and they get Antonio Williams back from injury. He was very limited, but you saw even at less than 100% how impactful he can be in that Gator Bowl and just limited snaps. He had some huge catches in the final drive. So between Tyler Brown and Antonio Williams, you feel like you have 2 guys you feel pretty good about, although it's awfully thin if that's all you got. But neither of those are tall, big, outside go up and get it guys. Maybe Cole Turner can be that. He was out last year with a core muscle injury, so he's another guy to watch. But maybe Bryant Wesco can assume that role as kind of like the quote alpha, go get it, jump ball kind of guy. So him and Cole Turner and maybe even Adam Randall are receivers to watch, but I'm especially looking at Bryant Wesco. Another freshman, linebacker Sammy Brown. He's one of the top freshmen in the class, and Jeremiah Trotter is off to the NFL, probably maybe a second-round draft pick. Jeremiah Trotter was excellent, one of the best players on the team, maybe the best player on the defense overall. So he's going to be tough to replace, but Barrett Carter's back, and I think Barrett Carter takes a big jump this year as he's focused on improving his draft stock and being a leader on that defense. So you have Carter, you have Wade Woodaz, who's the strong side, Carter being the weak side. So who's going to be the middle linebacker? It could be Sammy Brown, right? Kobe McLeod was good last year. He only played 90 snaps, but had a 75.4 PFF grade. So he was pretty solid. But Sammy Brown, if he can come in and make an instant impact, this linebacker core could be really elite. And I think McLeod has a role to play for sure. But I think we see Sammy Brown potentially play a decent-sized role right away. If not, then you got to wonder, are they going to go with a lot of 3 safety looks with maybe Tyler Venables and Sherrod Koval on the field along with 2 other safeties? Something like that could be in the works. I think seeing what Sammy Brown does will tell us a lot about the defense. And then on to special teams. Clemson only made 62.5% of their field goal attempts last year. Obviously suboptimal. And this year they're going to be giving out 2 scholarships to place kickers. Obviously that's also suboptimal. Robert Gunn and Nolan Hooser will both be on scholarship this coming year. So you got to think place kicking. They've made an investment to improve place kicking. They brought in a true freshman out of North Carolina and Nolan Hooser. What kind of impact can he make? Will he be the starting kicker? Does Robert Gunn look better? So really watching both kickers, but especially true freshman Nolan Hooser out of North Carolina. Can he be an instant impact guy? So those are a couple of things I'm looking for. It's a 1:00 game on Saturday. Should be fun to get up to Clemson. Always a good excuse to be in Clemson. So I hope you enjoyed the spring game and I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like this video. And as always, go Tigers.